Hello and welcome to another episode of Geek Speak 2.0 on YouTube. Now, we'll jump straight into the news here. J.J. Abrams has confirmed that film adaptations of Valve properties Portal and Half-Life are in production, or are in the works, stating that they have writers working on both projects, but currently there's not really any noteworthy news that he can share about it. This is one of those cases where he's saying, yes, we're working on the concept, but we don't really have any progress that we can say, yes, it's definitely going ahead, or point to and say, yes, we've done this. It's just a case of we're working on it, we're hoping it'll pan out. I for one would love to see a Half-Life based movie come out. Portal, possibly not so much, as that particular game is more based on the puzzle solving rather than the story or action elements, and it could really be quite difficult to pull off, considering the story is quite sparse and is basically told from a mute perspective with only two characters for the vast majority of the game. Now, we also have a bit of Marvel news, with Mike Colter having announced the premiere of his series Luke Cage on Netflix. Originally, we heard that this was going to be a November release. However, Mike has recently come out to state that it will be coming out on September 30th, which is at least a full month ahead of what we believed the schedule was, which some people have hopefully stated will leave the upcoming months open for a new Marvel Netflix series, possibly Iron Fist, although considering that that character is due to make an appearance in Luke Cage, I highly doubt that, especially with the soon-to-be premiered Season 2 of Daredevil. In a last bit of Marvel news for this segment, the Marvel/Sony reboot of SpiderMan that is being teased in the upcoming Captain America Civil War has a working title, and that working title is Summer of George. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering what the hell George, or Summer of George, has to do with Spider-Man, as to the best of my recollection, there has never been a character, or a recurring character, or an important character at the very least, in Spider-Man named George. Now, this could just be me having missed a storyline from the comics somewhere, as Spider-Man is one of the most well-known and honestly one of the most heavily published Marvel characters. At least four Spider-Man titles that I can think of in production at any one time: Amazing, Spectacular, Incredible, and Ultimate. As some people have theorised that it's possible that this title may have something to do with a Seinfeld episode of the same name, in which basically there was quite a bit of turmoil with George being out of work, Jerry's girlfriend having another boyfriend, and honestly, I didn't much pay attention to the episode as I'm not a big Seinfeld fan, but people have speculated that this is a hint that in this particular movie Peter Parker will be unemployed, and possibly single or have the girlfriend that he is interested in, which is normally Mary Jane but may actually be Gwen, being involved with another man. And onto one of our major speaking points for today. At the recent New York premiere of Daredevil Season 2, Marvel's head of television, Jeff Loeb, spoke on the massive slate of projects that they have going for Marvel Television. He stated that he wasn't alone there, with other such names as Joe Quesada, Dan Buckley, Alan Fine and Jim Chory. And judging by the slate he's got, he really needs that help with actually making sure everything gets done properly, as they have not only the animated shows Ultimate Spider-Man, Avengers Assemble, Guardians of the Galaxy, and the recently announced Big Hero 6 animated series, but when it comes to their live-action shows, they have Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, possibly, Jessica Jones, The Defenders, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, which we aren't sure if that's actually getting a third season, but we're hoping, Marvel's Most Wanted, Damage Control, as well as an untitled John Ridley superhero, an untitled Marvel superhero comedy, and Empire of the Dead, which I'm interested to see. Now, this is a lot of things. Admittedly, 2 of them are rumoured, 2 of them are untitled as of yet, and we might never see them, so that leaves 6 confirmed, but that's still a lot. And quite honestly, I can think at least half of them are going straight to Netflix as Netflix original series, which leaves only a few for broadcast television. But still, these are some very big shows, and it's very much fleshing out the television universe and the history of the Marvel Universe in a way that, quite frankly, the movies just don't have the scope for. And currently, with the separation of the television and cinematic universes, despite the fact that elements from the cinematic universe have crossed over into the television universe, it doesn't look like there'll be any relation between, or any backwards compatibility from the television universe to the cinematic universe, with so far apparently the writers and the team from the cinematic universe having absolutely no idea what the television universe is doing. And our last bit of news, which I'm actually quite happy for, is that the Tick is returning to the screen. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering what the Tick was, or is, and it started out as a comic strip, I believe, then became an animated series, then a short-lived live-action series, chronicling the adventures of possibly the dim-witted, or most dim-witted superhero of all time, the titular Tick. This guy had super strength, invulnerability, and a complete and utter lack of intelligence. The live action, this was played by Patrick Warburton, who will not be reprising his role as the blue-skinned super. However, he will be involved in the show as an executive producer. So far, the only confirmed cast members have been from the show Vinyls, Griffin Newman as Arthur, the Tick's sidekick and moth-suit-wearing accountant, and from House of Lives, Miss Valerie Curry, who will play Dot, who is the nurse sister to Arthur. I probably gave away a bit with my opening to this story. I am very excited to see this. The Tick, while not being one of the massively popular shows of my childhood and teenage years, was somewhat of a cult series. It didn't get the massive critical acclaim of the larger Marvel or DC cartoons, but you can't really look at this show or anybody who saw this show and not understand that it was a clear parody of basically itself and the entire superhero genre, which I just thought was absolutely brilliant. And on that note, as our final recommendation for the week, I'm going to recommend that you should all go out and find either a copy of the animated series or the live action series and watch The Tick. It is well worth the time, and you will definitely get a laugh out of it with such characters as Deflator Mouse, a European Batman clone or rip-off, and American Maid, a sort of cross between Wonder Woman and Captain America. Like I said, this show was a parody of the superhero genre, so a lot of its characters were parodies of bigger named characters from the comic book universe. And that's Geek Speak for this week. If you've got any comments or anything you'd like us to talk about, pop it in the comments below. And I'll also put a link to our Facebook and Twitter accounts in the description, so feel free to hit us up on one of those. Thank you, and see you next week.